Hello, and welcome back to this channel. I'm Andrew. I am grateful that you have chosen to spend this time in reflection. Today, we are exploring a question that arises naturally when ancient wisdom meets modern spiritual curiosity. What is the relationship between the teachings of Gautama Buddha and what is now called the Law of Attraction? In recent decades, many people have encountered the Law of Attraction through books like The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, which suggests that our thoughts and emotions shape the reality we experience. The idea that focused intention can influence life circumstances is powerful and appealing. At the same time, more than 2,500 years ago, Gautama Buddha taught profound insights about the mind, intention, karma, and the causes of suffering. But are these teachings saying the same thing? Or do they differ in subtle yet important ways? As sincere seekers, it is essential that we approach this inquiry with both openness and discernment. We must avoid oversimplifying ancient teachings, and we must also avoid dismissing modern ideas without examination. The Buddha consistently emphasized that the mind plays a central role in shaping experience. Yet he also warned against craving, attachment, and misunderstanding the nature of reality. So in this video, we will carefully examine where the law of attraction aligns with Buddhist psychology, where it diverges, and how you may practice intention in a way that is wise, ethical, and grounded. Let us begin this journey with humility, curiosity, and a sincere wish for clarity, not merely to manifest desires, but to understand the deeper laws that govern inner freedom. The Buddha's teaching on mind, intention, and karma. Dear seeker, before we attempt to connect ancient wisdom with modern ideas, we must first understand what Gautama Buddha actually taught about the mind. At the very beginning of the Dhammapada, one of the most widely read Buddhist texts, we find these powerful words: mind precedes all phenomena. Mind is their chief. They are all mind-made. This is not poetic exaggeration. It is a precise psychological observation. The Buddha is pointing to the fact that our experience of reality is filtered, shaped, and interpreted through mental states. However, the Buddha did not say that thoughts magically create the external world. Instead, he emphasized intention, known in Pali as cetanā. In the early teachings preserved within the Pali Canon, the Buddha clearly states, "It is intention, monks, that I call karma." This statement is extremely important. Karma is not fate. It is not reward or punishment from the universe. Karma is the ethical momentum generated by intentional actions, actions of body, speech, and mind. When you act with greed, anger, or delusion, certain consequences naturally follow. When you act with generosity, compassion, and wisdom, different consequences unfold. The law operating here is not mystical attraction, but cause and effect within consciousness and conduct. So if we're to speak about manifestation in Buddhist terms, we must understand that what we truly manifest are patterns of character. Over time, these patterns shape our relationships, our opportunities, and our inner peace. Dear seeker, the Buddha's focus was not on attracting wealth or circumstances. His focus was liberation from suffering. Yet the path begins exactly where the law of attraction begins, with the recognition that the mind matters profoundly. Understanding this foundation is essential before we move further. Understanding the law of attraction in modern spiritual thought. Dear seeker, now that we have gently examined the Buddha's teaching on mind and intention, let us turn our attention to what is popularly known today as the law of attraction. For many people, this concept became widely known through the book The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. The central idea presented there is simple yet powerful. Your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs emit a kind of energetic signal, and this signal attracts similar circumstances into your life. In short, like attracts like. According to this philosophy, if you consistently focus on abundance, gratitude, and positive expectation, you begin to draw opportunities, relationships, and outcomes that match that inner state. Conversely, if your mind is dominated by fear, doubt, or negativity, you attract experiences that mirror those conditions. At first glance, this teaching feels empowering. It suggests that you are not merely a passive victim of circumstances, but an active participant in shaping your life. It encourages clarity of desire, visualization of goals, emotional alignment, and daily affirmation. Many practitioners report increased motivation, confidence, and improved focus as a result of applying these principles. However, as thoughtful seekers, we must examine carefully. The law of attraction is often presented as a universal metaphysical law, almost as though the universe is a responsive mirror that rearranges reality based on your internal frequency. Yet the mechanism behind this idea is rarely explained in precise philosophical or scientific terms. In practical reality, much of what people call attraction may be explained psychologically. When your mind is focused clearly on a goal, you notice opportunities more readily. When you believe success is possible, you act with greater confidence. Your behavior changes, and so do your results. So, dear seeker, the law of attraction, at its strongest, is about mental focus, emotional alignment, and behavioral reinforcement. Whether interpreted metaphysically or psychologically, it invites us to consider the power of sustained thought. With this understanding, we are now ready to compare it more deeply with the Buddhist teachings, where the teachings converge, mind as a creative force. Dear seeker, now we arrive at a subtle and important part of our inquiry, the place where the teachings of Gautama Buddha and the modern law of attraction appear to resonate with one another. The first and most obvious convergence is this. Both recognize the central power of the mind. As we reflected earlier through the verses of the Dhammapada, the Buddha declared that mind precedes all phenomena. Likewise, the law of attraction teaches that your dominant thoughts influence your lived experience. In both systems, the mind is not passive, it is formative. Second, both traditions emphasize intention and sustained focus. In Buddhist teaching, intention, cetanā, shapes karma and therefore shapes future experience. In the law of attraction, sustained intention combined with emotional conviction is said to magnetize corresponding outcomes. While the philosophical explanations differ, the practical instruction is similar. What you repeatedly hold in awareness becomes strengthened. Third, both systems acknowledge the importance of inner alignment. In Buddhist practice, one cultivates right intention within the Noble Eightfold Path, intentions rooted in renunciation, goodwill, and harmlessness. In the law of attraction, one is encouraged to align thoughts and feelings with desired outcomes. In both cases, inconsistency between thought and feeling weakens effectiveness. However, dear seeker, it is essential to observe something carefully. In Buddhism, the goal of refining the mind is liberation from suffering. In the law of attraction, the goal is often improvement of circumstances. The methods may intersect: meditation, visualization, positive framing, but the ultimate aim differs. You may think of it this way: both paths recognize that the mind plants seeds. The difference lies in what kind of garden one is cultivating. Is it a garden of personal acquisition, or a garden of wisdom and compassion? Holding this question gently in your heart prepares us to explore the deeper distinctions ahead. Important differences: desire, attachment, and the nature of freedom. Dear seeker, as we proceed with sincerity, it is important that we now examine the areas where the teachings of Gautama Buddha and the modern law of attraction clearly diverge. This is not to criticize either path, but to understand them accurately and respectfully. The first and most significant difference concerns desire. In many presentations of the law of attraction, especially in works like The Secret, desire is treated as a creative force. You are encouraged to clarify what you want, intensify your emotional connection to it, and believe wholeheartedly that it is already yours. Desire, in this framework, is fuel. In contrast, the Buddha identified craving, known in Pali as ta, as the root of suffering. This teaching is central to the Four Noble Truths. According to the Buddha, attachment to outcomes, possessions, identities, or expectations binds the mind to dissatisfaction. Even when desire is fulfilled, it often leads to further wanting. The cycle continues. This does not mean Buddhism rejects all aspiration. Rather, it distinguishes between wholesome intention and craving born of attachment. The Noble Eightfold Path includes right intention, but those intentions are grounded in renunciation, goodwill, and harmlessness, not in grasping. A second difference concerns the understanding of causality. The law of attraction is sometimes described as a universal mechanism that directly mirrors your thoughts into reality. Buddhism, however, teaches dependent origination, the principle that phenomena arise due to complex networks of causes and conditions. Your thoughts matter deeply, but they operate within a vast web of interdependence. Not everything is the result of personal thinking alone. Dear seeker, this distinction protects us from two extremes: magical thinking and self-blame. If difficulties arise, Buddhism encourages investigation, compassion, and wise action, not the conclusion that one has attracted misfortune through faulty thought. In this way, the Buddha's teaching offers a stabilizing wisdom. It invites transformation of the mind, yes, but always with ethical clarity, realism, and freedom from clinging. Practicing intention wisely, a balanced path for the seeker. Dear seeker, having understood both the parallels and the differences, the natural question now arises: how shall we practice? If we appreciate the motivational strength found in the law of attraction, yet wish to remain grounded in the ethical clarity of Gautama Buddha, we must adopt a balanced and disciplined approach. Let us begin with wholesome intention. As we saw in the Dhammapada, the mind shapes experience. Therefore, each morning you may consciously set an intention, but let it be aligned with wisdom. Instead of saying, "May I obtain everything I desire," you may say, "May my actions today be skillful, beneficial, and guided by clarity." In this way, your aspiration strengthens character rather than attachment. Second, combine visualization with right effort. If you hold a goal in your mind, whether professional growth, improved health, or harmonious relationships, do not rely on thought alone. Reflect carefully: what actions support the same? What habits must be cultivated? Buddhism emphasizes karma as intentional action. Therefore, manifestation must include disciplined conduct. Third, cultivate gratitude without clinging. Gratitude shifts perception toward abundance and reduces dissatisfaction. Yet balance it with equanimity, the understanding that all conditions are impermanent. This protects you from becoming dependent on outcomes. Fourth, practice mindfulness meditation regularly. Without awareness, intention becomes mechanical repetition. With awareness, you begin to see whether your desires arise from insecurity, comparison, or genuine growth. Meditation refines discernment. Finally, include others in your aspirations. Before seeking success, silently ask, "May this benefit not only me, but those around me." This transforms personal ambition into compassionate participation in life. Dear seeker, when intention is guided by ethics, reinforced by action, and softened by non-attachment, it becomes a path not merely to acquisition, but to maturity and inner freedom. Deep reflection, from manifestation to liberation. Dear seeker, as we come to this final section of our inquiry, let us move from comparison into contemplation. Beyond techniques, beyond terminology, what is the deeper purpose of working with the mind? The modern law of attraction often asks, what do you want to create? The teachings of Gautama Buddha ask a slightly different question. What is the nature of suffering, and how can it end? This distinction is subtle, but profound. If our practice is centered solely on acquiring desired outcomes, then the mind remains oriented toward becoming more successful, more secure, more admired. Yet the Buddha observed that this constant becoming is itself part of the cycle that sustains dissatisfaction. Even when we achieve our goals, the mind quickly moves to the next object of pursuit. Through teachings preserved in the Pali Canon, the Buddha repeatedly emphasized impermanence, anicca, unsatisfactoriness, dukkha, and non-self, anatta. These are not pessimistic doctrines. They're invitations to see clearly. When we understand that all conditioned phenomena arise and pass away, we loosen our grip. When we loosen our grip, we suffer less. This does not mean abandoning goals or withdrawing from life. Rather, it means engaging fully while understanding the transient nature of results. You may visualize success. You may work diligently, but you do not bind your identity to the outcome. Dear seeker, perhaps the most mature synthesis is this: use intention to cultivate clarity, discipline, and compassion, not to control the universe, but to purify the heart. Let aspiration refine your character. Let mindfulness reveal attachment. Let wisdom steady ambition. When manifestation becomes secondary to awakening, the practice transforms. You no longer seek merely to attract circumstances. You seek to understand reality. And in that understanding, a deeper freedom quietly begins to unfold. A closing reflection for the sincere seeker. Dear seeker, as we gently conclude this exploration, let us pause for a moment of quiet reflection. Today, we examine the teachings of Gautama Buddha alongside the modern philosophy popularized in works like The Secret. We saw that both recognize the power of the mind. Both encourage intentional awareness. Both remind us that inner states influence lived experience. Yet we also discovered an essential distinction. One path often aims at attracting desired circumstances, while the other aims at liberation from attachment to circumstances. One seeks improvement of external outcomes. The other seeks transformation of the inner relationship to all outcomes. As a sincere practitioner, you are not required to reject one in order to understand the other, but you are invited to approach both with discernment. If you choose to practice intention, let it be ethical. If you visualize success, pair it with disciplined action. If you seek abundance, do not neglect compassion. And if life unfolds differently than expected, respond not with blame, but with inquiry and wisdom. Remember, the Buddha's path was never about suppressing aspiration. It was about purifying it. When desire matures into wise intention, and intention matures into compassionate action, the mind becomes lighter. When a mind becomes lighter, freedom is no longer distant. If this reflection has brought clarity to your journey, I invite you to continue exploring deeply through study, meditation, and lived practice. May your intentions be skillful. May your actions be mindful. And may your search for manifestation evolve into a search for truth. Until our next reflection, walk gently, think clearly, and remain sincere in your inquiry.